All right. So we are studying making of the constitution. Before that, we have a question from last class. Preamble पे. All constitutions don't have a preamble. That is correct. Then how does it make difference, or there is no difference as such? Okay. See, preamble. It's like you want to tell the people. Okay, you want to convey to the people that see, when you open our constitution, there will be a preface or an introduction which tells you that what is inside, what to expect inside. It is totally up to the country or totally up to the people of the country whether they want to insert a preamble or not. Okay, so we have inserted a preamble so that in a manner we can have, okay, we can have a introduction and give other people of other countries, an introduction on what we have made inside and what can be expected inside. Okay, so if we are saying that yes, we will, we are seeking justice, which can be social, which can be economic, and which can be political, it means that the person who is reading, who is not an Indian, that person can expect provisions inside the constitution which pertains to social justice, which pertains to economic justice, and which pertains to political justice. Okay. Yes. All right. Is it clear? क्या ये चीज आप लोगों की क्लियर है? ओके, अब हम बात करते हैं इंडियन पॉलिटी हैंड आउट पार्ट 2, दैट इज मेकिंग ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की मेकिंग जो है, इससे एक क्वेश्चन जो है, दिस वन क्वेश्चन हैड कम इन 2024. वी विल डिस्कस व्हिच क्वेश्चन. Okay. So demands for a constituent assembly. There was a strong demand for a constituent assembly. Yes. So what had happened was the initial attempt at making a constitution for India happened when? Can you tell me? So the initial attempt happened via the Nehru report. Okay. This was in 1927, and this was in response to something known as Birkenhead Challenge. Okay. Birkenhead was the viceroy, and he had given the challenge to the people inside the Congress that, okay, if you want, you can make a constitution for India. You can draft a constitution if you are not satisfied with the Simon Commission. Okay. After that, we take a leap and we go to the 1940 August offer. So August offer had come, if you remember from the modern history classes, that August offer, okay, today is the death anniversary of Motilal Nehru as well. Okay, so very fortuitous, you can say. So August offer जो है 1940 का, this basically it asked Indians that, okay, you help us against this war against Hitler, and we will allow you to draft a constitution. हम लोग आपको क्या allow करेंगे? We will allow you to draft a constitution, but this will be under the British provision. As the war progressed, the offer started getting better. So in Cripps mission, they said that, okay, Indians can draft their constitution without British supervision. But still, August offer and Cripps mission was rejected by the Congress. Why? Because both of them, they gave a post-dated check. And that post-dated check was the dominion status. Okay. So इस चीज को ध्यान में रखना है. So demands for a constituent assembly, initial जो constituent assembly, हमने अभी क्या constitution की बात की. So constituent assembly का demand जो है, that there should be a group of people, Indians coming together, who will make a constitution for India. So this was first articulated by M.N. Roy. So now this can be a multiple choice question. The UPSC can ask you that, you tell me who was the first person to come up with the idea of a constituent assembly. So you will say that it is M.N. Roy. M.N. Roy ko hum we know M.N. Roy by what? In 1920, if you remember, he was the founder of the CPI as well in Tashkent. And he was also the founder of the CPM. What is CPM? Communist Party of Mexico or Mexico. So M.N. Roy जो है, he basically after that 1934 में He said that there is a need for a constituent assembly to frame India's constitution. And then Indian National Congress also demanded in 1935, they officially demanded a constituent assembly elected on the basis of an adult franchise, that people should vote for the people who will draft a constitution. So 1935 coincides with the Government of India Act 1935. Okay, so it was made in the same year. So Jawaharlal Nehru's resolution in 1938 we had, so where Nehru declared that Constitution of Free India must be framed by a constituent assembly elected on the broadest possible democratic basis. Now the thing is that do you think that it was feasible to directly elect the members of the Constituent Assembly? Was it feasible at that point of time? So the answer is no. So what did we go with? We went with the leaders of the 1946 elections. So these 1946 elections, it happened on limited franchise. As you know that the Britishers, they did not allow everybody to vote. So in 1946 elections, we had the Congress party coming in and the Muslim League coming in at a strong second. And then 1946 elections के through जो है, हमने क्या देखा कि provinces में government बनी, provinces were made in the government, and those representatives, they sent their representatives to the Constituent Assembly. So now this particular thing tells us that indirectly elected था हमारा Constituent Assembly. So Cabinet Mission Plan, which came in 1946, it laid down the framework for the Constituent Assembly, leading to its formation. So आपको पता है यहाँ पर ये बहुत important fact है that the composition of the Constituent Assembly was based on the Cabinet Mission Plan 1946, and the total membership allocated was 389. British Indian provinces would get 292 and princely states would get 93, and the chief commissioners provinces, they will get 4. So members from the British Indian provinces, what were the British Indian provinces? Bengal, Madras, okay, Sindh, you have this Punjab, okay, and all United Province, Central Provinces, okay, Bombay, all these areas, all right, they were the British Indian provinces. वहां से जो है आपके elected थे कहां से? They were elected by the Provincial Legislative Assembly using proportional representation. So जिस तरीके से, in the manner that you elect the Rajya Sabha MPs, in the similar manner, these people sent the representatives to the Constituent Assembly. Am I right or am I wrong? जिस तरीके से राज्यसभा का आज के डेट में इलेक्शन होता है, in the similar manner, using the proportional representation, they sent the representative to the first Constituent Assembly, which was formed to make the constitution. So princely states, they were to nominate their representative. This is very important. Why? Because UPSC had laid a trap in 1942 Cripps mission question. So in 2022 prelims, they had asked that princely states representative would be elected. So the answer is wrong. Why? Because princely states, they nominated their representatives. So there is a difference between nominating and between electing. Okay. So seats were allotted to the minority communities like Muslims, Sikhs, and the general category in proportion to their population in each province. What was the impact of partition? So after partition, the membership was reduced to 299. Why? Because rest of the seats, it went to Pakistan. Pakistan में चला गया. So we went from 389. अगर आप देखेंगे 389 से रिड्यूस हो गया 299. वाई? बिकॉज ये जो 90 सीट्स है, दिस वेंट टू पाकिस्तान. ओके, बंगाल का, पंजाब का, यू सी दैट देयर इज ए partition Sindh went, NWFP went, okay. Also your Baluchistan वाला जो एरिया है that went. So उसके वजह से 99 सीट्स जो है वो हमारा चला गया. What was the nature of membership? So the members were predominantly from the Indian National Congress and from some other small groups as well. Because the Muslim League, it basically took Pakistani areas or the 4 provinces in Pakistan. So उसके बाद क्या हुआ? उसके बाद जो है Indian National Congress was left as the dominant party, and this dominance we see in the first general elections as well. When did the general elections happen? General elections कब हुआ था? 1951 and 52 में हुआ था. It took time to form the constitution. Once the constitution was done, then 1 year more was taken to set up a proper system. And then in 1951 and 52, they started with this basically. ये जो आपका इलेक्शंस है, और इलेक्शंस इन द फर्स्ट जनरल इलेक्शन कांग्रेस पार्टी was able to win 364 seats out of 389 seats. Okay, the possible 389, sorry 489, not 389, 489 seats उस समय. अभी तो बढ़ गया है, अभी now we have increased, but उस समय 489 seats थे. तो 364 seats out of that was won by the Congress alone. So Congress जो है, it gained a lot. It became the undisputed party, all right, of India. Working of the Constituent Assembly, how? Let us see. So inaugural session was held on 9th December 1946, and it was presided over temporarily by Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. This was verbatim question in 2024 prelims. आपके 2024 prelims में this question came directly. Okay. So ये याद रखिएगा, Sachidanand Sinha, since he was the oldest member of the Constituent Assembly, so an honor was given to him that he became the temporary president, and after him Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was later elected as the permanent chairman or the president of the assembly on 11th December 1946. So following the Mountbatten plan, जो 3rd June 1947 को पास हुआ था, and partition, the assembly reassembled in November 1947 with the reduced membership of 299. मतलब पहले कितना था, फिर मैं बता रहा हूं, 389 था because of undivided India. So 389 number was for undivided India, and 299 members जो है, this happened after partition. So partition की वजह से some of the seats they were reduced. Why? Because population and area went to and form a new country called Pakistan. So assembly met for 11 sessions over a total of 165 days, and all its meetings were open to the public. This is important. इनके जो meetings थे, they were not secret. It was open to the public can come and the public can watch. So objective resolution on 13 December 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru introduced the objective resolution, and you all know this objective resolution, it later became part of the preamble. Okay. So drafting जो है, draft constitution was initially prepared, it was published for public feedback, and it was debated clause by clause. If only one clause was not debated, it was passed without debate and it was passed unanimously. Can you tell me which clause? It was that of universal adult franchise. It was not in the mind of the founding fathers or the members of the Constituent Assembly that there can be any group of people in India who can be disenfranchised. Okay. So what had happened was, आप ऐसे सोच के, खुद से सोच के देखिए, just think yourself that do you think that any kind of debate could be here? Who you will remove? You will remove the Dalits, or you will remove the women, or you will remove Anglo-Indians. Anybody who is a citizen of India, anybody who is above the age of 18 at that time, oh sorry, not 21 at that time, and later Rajiv Gandhi, he made it 18. But 21 से अगर आप ऊपर होंगे, so it doesn't matter what community, what caste, what creed, what class you come from, you will be eligible to vote. Okay. So members, they discuss the key principles like fundamental rights. Fundamental rights में what to include, what to exclude, directive principle of state policies, structure of the government. Will it be a parliamentary government? Will it be a presidential government? Okay. So this, all these kinds of things was discussed and debated clause by clause. And committees of the Constituent Assembly. Now this is important for the facts. Facts के लिए important है. So who was the chairman of the drafting committee? This is a very popular question. Not in UPSC, but it is a popular question in state PCS. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he was the chairman, and it was set up on 29th August 1947, and it was tasked with preparing the draft of the constitution. Okay. Not exactly. So see, there are many committees, लेकिन minor ones का again, that is the problem. So एक minor committee जो आपको याद रखनी है is the subcommittee on national flag. Yes, that is, I think, the only thing that you can remember. National flag के subcommittee का chairman कौन था? National flag के subcommittee का chairman डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद थे. ओके. सो इस चीज को ध्यान रखिएगा. यूनियन पावर्स कमिटी. So it was with Jawaharlal Nehru, and it was concerned with the distribution of powers between the center and the provinces. Union Constitution Committee, it was again by Jawaharlal Nehru, and it dealt with the overall structure of the central government. Provincial Constitution Committee, so this was under Sardar Patel, who was the chairman, and it handled matter related to administration of provinces. Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal Areas. So Sardar Patel was again the chairman, and इसमें सब committees थी, मतलब committee के अंदर committee, there was a committee within the committee. So Sardar Patel was handling the Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal Areas. Now can you tell me one thing, that why Sardar Patel was given this advisory committee on fundamental rights? Is there any symbolic linkage that you guys can think about? Think from the perspective of modern history. 1931 Karachi session. Who was the president? Very good. Excellent. Who was the president? Sardar Patel. And what did the Congress adopt in the 1931 session? The Congress adopted the Fundamental Rights Resolution. Yes. Okay. So इस तरीके से जो है लिंक करके भी आप देख सकते हैं that everything that had happened in the Constituent Assembly, it had some symbolic linkage. Now, do you understand why I insisted upon modern history to be read first before diving into polity? Because a lot of things could be understood by modern history only. जो आपका post 1927 developments है, that is very necessary for you to gain an insight into the polity, okay, Indian polity. Anyways, तो इसमें सब कमिटीज थी, like फंडामेंटल राइट्स सब कमिटी which was chaired by JB Kriplani. Okay, so state committee, again Jawaharlal Nehru was the chairman, and he addressed the relationship of the princely state with the union. And steering committee में कौन था? So it organized the business of the assembly. Steering मतलब समझते हैं किस तरफ direction. Okay, किस direction में जा रही है assembly? So day-to-day business of the assembly, it was headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Now let us talk about the enactment of the constitution. So final adoption of the constitution, basically ये जो है initially 26 November 1949 को हो चुका था, and यहाँ पर जो है constitution जो है उसको finally apply कब किया गया? Apply किया गया 26 January 1950, so that it could coincide with the Purna Swaraj Divas declaration in 1930 Lahore session. Okay. So a total of 7,635 amendments were proposed. मैंने आपको बताया था this is clause by clause discussion. So when clause by clause discussions happened, so many amendments were proposed by the members, out of which 2,473 were discussed in the assembly. All right. Enactment का मतलब है कि the working of the constituent assembly came to an end. The constituent assembly, it signed off that we have enacted the constitution, and the Dominion of India then adopted it, and it shed the skin of Dominion and came out as a republic. Okay. Signature and authentication. Signature and authentication. So Dr. Rajendra Prasad, as the president of the assembly, authenticated the final version of the constitution. Okay. So Dr. Rajendra Prasad के पहले temporary कौन थे? Who was the temporary chairman of the assembly? Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. Okay. Enforcement of the constitution. So constitution came into full operation on 26th January. Okay, some parts they were, you are correct. It was applied the day it was enacted on 26th November 1949. But it came into full operation on 26th January 1950 to pay respect to the Purna Swaraj Divas. Okay. All right. Okay. So the date was chosen to honor the historic declaration of Purna Swaraj, complete independence, which was made on 26th January as part of the Lahore session on the banks of which river, my friend? Do you guys remember? We had talked about this. On the banks of Ravi River. Yes, on the banks of Ravi River. ठीक है. So ये जो है, this is correct. Okay, this is correct. इसको याद रखिएगा. ओके, कुछ प्रोविजंस जो थे, ऑलराइट, कुछ प्रोविजंस जो थे वो पहले आ गए थे. साइंड ऑन 24th January. आई एम नॉट श्योर अबाउट दैट. आई थिंक ही हैड साइंड ऑन 26th November ओनली, एंड देन 2 महीने के बाद वो फुल पावर में आ चुका था. सो प्रोविजंस विच वर इन्फोर्स्ड अर्लियर, like citizenship, provisions of citizenship, elections, provisional parliament, fundamental rights related to equality. Okay, articles 324, 366, 367, they were enforced immediately, but full enforcement, formal transition, it happened on 26th January 1950, and India became a sovereign democratic republic. Now we are what? Now we are what? Are we a sovereign democratic republic? We are a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic. Please remember, by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, secular and sovereign socialist were added. Okay. ठीक है, इंदिरा गांधी के समय में आया था ये. एक्सपर्ट कमिटी जो है, उसका क्या रोल था? सो बिफोर द ऑफिशियल फॉर्मेशन ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली हैपेंड, the Indian National Congress set up its own internal committee to prepare a blueprint and gather expert opinions on constitutional matter. So नेहरू कमिटी जो है ये पहले आ चुकी थी मोतीलाल नेहरू की 1928 में, और उसके बाद कांग्रेस जो है, it often relied on constitutional experts like Sir B.N. Rao. So he was a constitutional advisor even before the formal drafting of the constitution had started taking place. See, this was a massive exercise that the Constituent Assembly had to take place. So a research, before that research had to be done. Criticism क्या था Constituent Assembly का? So criticism था कि it was not a sovereign body because it was created under the cabinet mission plan. Many people were of the opinion that after independence, this should have been done. But we created the Constituent Assembly in 1946. Okay. So it led critics to argue that it was not fully independent. Why? Because there was still British influence. Okay. Congress domination. So assembly had a large majority of Congress members. and some believed this could stifle alternative viewpoints. So Congress people, they came from a certain background, they came from a certain ideology. So uske wajah se the people said that okay, this is not something that represents the ideology of entire country. There are people who are capitalist, there are people who are landholders, there are people who are communists. So because of this utter domination of Congress people in the Constituent Assembly, people they criticized that ये जो है, this is not a good thing, and the Congress does not represent all kinds of ideology. So this can be a question as well in your GS1 history, modern history, or UPSC can simply ask this in GS2 polity. So there you have to write the criticism. So somebody was asking कि कैसे मैं use करूं handouts को for mains preparation. There is your answer. This kind of things, like criticism of the Constituent Assembly, that can be written in your mains answer. Okay, so indirect election was again a sticking point. Many people say that they did not actually are the people's choice. Why? Because they are indirectly elected. They are not directly elected by the people. Okay. Or originally Congress also said that widest possible franchise use करके direct election should be there. Some sections argued that minorities and certain socio-economic groups were underrepresented and the princely states nominated rather than elected their members. That was also a problem. So princely state जो है, it had become an issue. Initially, the Congress was out of the princely states. It did not wanted to basically get into the politics of the princely states, so it remained out. But from 1927 and 1928, princely states जो हैं, they started to get pressure from the Congress. और उसके लिए जो है Congress, it started to support a particular body. Can you tell me the name of that particular body that Congress started to support? Prajamandal. The answer is Prajamandal. Okay, so Prajamandal was formed. Prajamand मतलब समझते हैं, प्रजा किसकी होती है? राजा की प्रजा होती है. The king has a praja. Praja is a Hindi word which means subjects. The king has subjects. So Prajamandal was formed in response to Narendra Mandal or Raja Mandal. मतलब नरेंद्र मंडल मतलब चेंबर ऑफ प्रिंसेस. So chamber of people, Praja Mandal is the chamber of people, and the Narendra Mandal was the chamber of princes. The chamber of princes was formed. All right. और यहां पर जो है एक चीज क्या होती है, ये चीज होती है कि Praja Mandal was initially not supported much by Congress, but later on they started supporting, and these people, the Narendra Mandal people, the politicians from the the Praja Mandal people, the politicians from the Praja Mandal people, they started to put pressure on the princely states. They started to organize satyagrah against the rajas of the princely states. Okay. The Constituent Assembly, it took almost 3 years to finalize the constitution. So the critics, they basically cite the lengthy process and the high cost. देखिए high cost मतलब उनका जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली के मेंबर्स हैं, उनका बोर्डिंग एंड लॉजिंग फॉर 3 years, चाय पानी नाश्ता, all these things, it costed money. Hiring people, stenographers, typists, hiring secretaries. Okay, people, the senior people, they were given cars. Okay, so ये सारी चीजें जो है, इनके वजह से for 3 years a lot of money was spent, and a significant number of members were lawyers. So lawyers का over domination था. So this was a lawyer heavy constituent assembly. So important facts related देख लेते हैं to the Constitution of India. So Indian Constitution is the longest written constitution in the world. It originally had 395 articles in 22 parts and 8 schedules. As you know, parts जो है बढ़ गया. Okay, so the schedules. Current articles 25 parts and the 12 schedules and 470 plus articles are there. Okay. उसके साथ साथ date of adoption 26 November 1949, date of enforcement 26 January 1950, which we celebrate as the Republic Day. Signatories, it was signed by 284 members of the Constituent Assembly. It took 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days, almost 3 years, to draft. The original constitution was handwritten in English and Hindi, and the Hindi and English texts were handwritten by calligrapher Prem Behari Narayan Raizada. This is very important. ये देखिए, this can be a prelims question, that who wrote the calligraphy. It was Prem Behari Narayan Raizada with artistic embellishments by Nandalal Bose and artists of Shanti Niketan. Okay, so elephant was adopted as the symbol of the Constituent Assembly, and H.V.R. Iyengar was the secretary to the Constituent Assembly. Okay. Now let us talk about the sources of the Constitution. This is absolutely important. Please remember, कहाँ से हमने provisions उठाए हैं, from where we have taken the provision, that is also important. So parliamentary system of government, this we have taken from the UK Constitution. Fundamental rights we have taken from the US Constitution. Please remember this. DPSP from the Irish Constitution. Concurrent list and union state relations. So basically the 7th schedule principles from the Australian Constitution. Emergency provisions from the Weimar Constitution, जो कि बाद में हिटलर ने खत्म कर दिया था. Fundamental duties which came later on under Article 51A under the USSR Constitution. Judicial review from the US Constitution. President as the head of state, again from the US Constitution. Single citizenship from UK Constitution, and procedure for amendment साउथ अफ्रीकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने उठाया था. ठीक है. ओके, सो somebody was asking, I think yesterday or today only, that UK का जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, it is unwritten. Yes. So how does it work? Okay, how does it work? So yes, so basically UK का जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, it sort of it traces its days back to the 13th century, since the time of Magna Carta. Okay, और वहां से जो है 1275 के पास में जो है, उस समय मैग्ना कार्टा वाज साइंड. सो इट मैग्ना कार्टा जो है, it basically formed the basis of the new British era or the new Britain, जहां पर power would be shared between the monarch and the politicians or the people. So यहां पर क्या है कि उनका लेगेसी चला आ रहा है. So what had happened was that if you go to the Parliament of Britain, so you can argue for laws from 16th to 17th century also. Okay, और वहां पर जो है, they follow a system of legislative supremacy. मतलब the British Parliament is supreme there. All right, and all the cases, they are judged by case basis. यहां पर जो है, आप जिसे इंडिया में है, everything is written down. Okay, everything has a standard procedure. Whereas if you go to the British judiciary and you argue a case, so that will be on case by case basis. So legislative supremacy जो है, that is there. The parliament can abrogate anything there. The parliament, okay, it has very limited checks and balances. Whereas in India, the parliament also has checks and balances from the judiciary. ये ऐसा चीज वहां नहीं है. Okay, in Britain it is not there. Unique features of the Indian Constitution की बात करते हैं. So largest democratic constitution in the world. It is a combination of rigidity and flexibility. One thing that I had told you everybody कि मैंने बताया था आपको, that Indian Constitution is a living document. It is a breathing document. What do I mean by that? So what is a non-living document then? What is a non-living document? It can be a religious text. You cannot change the religious text. Once Gita is written, Gita is written. Once Quran is written, Quran is written. Once your Bible is written, it's written. It cannot be changed. But the founding fathers, they did not wanted to make the constitution like the Bible, Quran, or the Gita. So they said that we will allow amendments by the parliament to stand the test of time. Okay. To stand the test of time, amendments जो है आपको करना होगा. ठीक है. So some provisions you can simply clear by simple majority. अगर आपको amend करना है, if you want to amend the constitution, you can do so by simple majority, which are not so important, as in they do not change the federal structure. Okay, they do not change the federal structure. They do not change the core structure of the constitution. So it can be done by simple majority. And while others, they need a special majority or ratification by states. Okay, so ratification by states कब चाहिए? When आप federal provisions change कर रहे हैं. So if I am changing the way the president is elected, do I need the ratification by states? The answer is yes. Why? Why? Because the states are also involved. Because the states are also involved in the election of the president. So it is a federal provision. Okay. So somebody said यहाँ पर कि every constitution is a living document. But what I will add here is that some constitutions are more living than the others. Can I say like this? Some constitutions are more living than the others. It means कुछ constitutions में scope ज्यादा रहता है change करने का. Some constitutions are set in stone and it is very difficult. For example, USA. USA का constitution change करना बहुत मुश्किल है. It is the one of the toughest process in the world. उसके लिए जो है आपको एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली जो है बुलाना पड़ेगा. ओके. और उसके लिए जो है आपको बहुत सारी चेंजेस करनी पड़ेगी. बीच में इंडिया में भी दे ट्राइड टू इंट्रोड्यूस दिस, बट द पार्लियामेंट एंड द जुडिशरी इट स्टार्टेड टू हैव फाइट्स. ओके. सो वो फाइट्स के बारे में हम लेटर ऑन पढ़ेंगे. बेसिकली इट वाज अ पावर टसल between Indira Gandhi and the judiciary from 1967 till 1973. So who won the tussle for amendments? The judiciary won, but it seemed that Indira Gandhi won. Kyun? Because the judiciary settled the matter with the basic structure doctrine. कल मैंने बताया था ना आपको basic structure doctrine. We will hold a class on this very soon. But basic structure doctrine में क्या था? That yes, you can amend Indian constitution, but you cannot change the basic features of the constitution. And who is going to decide that what constitutes the basic feature? It will be the judiciary. Okay. Yes. Correct. After 1973 है. It's not retrospective. रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव का मतलब होता है जितने पुराने लॉज हैं सारे चेंज हो जाते हैं, जितने पुराने केस है सारे उन पे सब पे लगता है. लेकिन उन्होंने एक टाइमलाइन बना दिया कि ओनली आफ्टर दिस जजमेंट, द 1973 जजमेंट, अब जो है बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर लगेगा. ओके. सो नाउ लेट अस टॉक अबाउट दिस blend of parliamentary and federal system. India is a blend of parliamentary and federal system. Parliamentary system like UK, but we have federal features like USA. यूनिटरी फीचर्स इन टाइम्स ऑफ इमरजेंसी. सो इमरजेंसी में हम एक कंट्री, एक यूनिट बन जाते हैं, सिंगल यूनिट. वी आर नाउ मल्टीपल यूनिट्स इनसाइड. ओके. बाहर से सिंगल यूनिट है लेकिन अंदर से मल्टीपल यूनिट्स हैं. बट व्हेन If there is a time of emergency, we all come together and form a single unit and function like a single unit. Okay. Secularism. So there is no state religion and all religions are treated equally. Independent judiciary. So Supreme Court and High Courts, they uphold judicial review. So एक चीज के बारे में समझिएगा आप लोग, that we have a single integrated judiciary. What does this mean? Having a single integrated judiciary means there is a hierarchical system. एक पिरामिड के अंदर SC, that is Supreme Court, HC is High Court, and then comes your lower courts like the district courts and the Mufassil's court and the sessions court and something like that. Okay, so यहाँ पर क्या है, that each of them can be reviewed by the other who is standing above them. मतलब lower courts का judgment high court can review, high court का judgment Supreme Court can review. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand, that we are a single integrated judiciary. There are countries in the world, there are democracies where the state judiciary is independent of the Supreme Court. Okay. Now Sidak is asking, where do we place the tribunals? So tribunals का काम क्या होता है? Specific issues, specific laws पे judgment देना. Okay, so tribunals जो है, they are as told by the Honorable Supreme Court below the High Court. Okay, so ये जो है, there was a case in 1997. That case was called as L. Chandra Kumar case. और ये जो है basically it was the same thing कि ट्राइब्यूनल्स का क्या पावर है, ट्राइब्यूनल्स कहां पर है, वेयर आर द ट्राइब्यूनल्स. ओके, सो सक्सेसिवली जो केसेस हैं उसमें ये देखा गया है दैट द ट्राइब्यूनल्स दे ट्राई टू, सिंस दे आर फॉर स्पेसिफिक लॉज एंड एक्ट्स and for a specific purpose, the tribunals, they try to overshoot themselves and they try to basically go above the HC. But the HC, they start to have a power struggle. So the Supreme Court has said that no, the High Court will have jurisdiction over the tribunal. Okay, so ये जो है, this has been a question in GS2 as well. 2 बार क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी ने ये पूछा है कि ट्राइब्यूनल्स अपना जो पावर ओवरशूट करता है उसको कैसे, ऑलराइट, उसको कैसे जो है हम देखे. ऑलराइट, universal adult franchise. So there is no discrimination based on caste, gender, religion, or wealth. Everybody, when you go to give vote, you don't know the person in front of you. He can be of any caste. He can be of a Dalit. He can be an OBC. He can be a general caste. Okay, or he can be a wealthy person. He can be a poor person. But everybody stands in line. Is there any line for poor person and is there any line for rich person? There is no, there is a single line which goes inside. हाँ, women के लिए और elderly के लिए अलग होता है, but that is something which is to give them some kind of comfort. This is not to discriminate. Fundamental rights and DPSP. So it is a combination of US style justiciable rights and Irish style non-justiciable. So ये समझिएगा एक बात को कि justiciable होता क्या है. Justiciable means you can approach the court. Okay, whereas non-justiciable मतलब you cannot approach. So fundamental rights are justiciable. हमने बात की थी कल, fundamental rights are what? These are the claims of an individual against another individual or state. Against the state. Okay, so आप जो है, you can approach the court if your fundamental rights are abrogated or it has been violated. Okay, but when it comes to DPSP, you cannot directly go to the court. Why? Because see, DPSPs are directives. These are the ideal condition. मतलब जब देश में ideal conditions होंगे, एक चीज बताता हूं DPSP के बारे में. These are basically guidelines. DPSP क्या होता है? These are the guidelines for the government. Now it asks you to take care of the it asks you to take care of the downtrodden, let us say, okay, downtrodden जो कि poor है. So if you see that there is a rupees 500 pension for some vrid pension, okay, so elderly people who are poor and who cannot work, they get 500 rupees pension, okay. So now if the DPSP is asking, okay, DPSP is asking that okay, you take care of the poor and the downtrodden to the government, so it is giving rupees 500. अब आप पूछेंगे कि रुपीस 500 का जो पेंशन है उससे क्या होगा. अरे फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज गवर्नमेंट के लिए थोड़ी होता. फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज इज फॉर द पीपल टू पीपल, दैट आई एज एन इंडिविजुअल what kind of duties I have, okay, towards my country and to other people. I'm talking about DPSP. DPSPs are something that you, okay, the founding fathers are telling the government, okay, कि आप ऐसे करिए, अपना इस तरीके से आपको सरकार चलानी है. ऑल राइट. तो ये चीज जो है, ओके, ये चीज जो है आपको समझना होगा कि ये रुपीस 500 पेंशन से क्या होगा. किसी किसी का तो घर चलेगा नहीं. बट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस इज अकॉर्डिंग टू द this is according to the capacity of government, and that is the reason that you cannot go to the court. This is the reason that you can not go to the court, that government की capacity over time develop होती है. Okay, गवर्नमेंट की जो कैपेसिटी है ये ओवर टाइम डेवलप होती है. दैट इज व्हाट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. अगर इसको जस्टिसिएबल बना दिया गया लाइक फंडामेंटल राइट्स डीपीएसपी को, सो व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन, the courts would be flooded with complaints, the court will be flooded with cases. Okay, so the DPSP is in something which we need to follow in ideal condition. Now suppose they are saying that आप जो है डीपीएसपी के अंदर, ओके, आप जो है डीपीएसपी के अंदर देर आर सर्टन प्रोविजन, लेट अस से दैट कोऑपरेटिव्स का कोई प्रोविजन है कि आप जो है वर्कर्स के राइट्स को बेटर करेंगे, कोऑपरेटिव्स को बेटर करेंगे. सो यू कैन नॉट गो टू दी कोर्ट सेइंग दैट अभी तक कोई कोऑपरेटिव्स पे काम नहीं चला है, नथिंग हैज बीन डन फॉर द कोऑपरेटिव, नथिंग हैज बीन डन फॉर द फॉरेस्ट, नथिंग हैज बीन डन फॉर दिस और दैट. ओके, सो ये चीज आपको समझनी होगी कि डीपीएसपी में दीज आर मियरली गाइडलाइंस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट इन आइडियल कंडीशन, एंड इट बेसिकली इंक्रीजेस विद द कैपेसिटी ऑफ गवर्नमेंट. ओके, सो ये चीज जो है, अब आप पूछ रही हैं कि हु डिसाइड्स द गवर्नमेंट्स कैपेसिटी, दिस इज द रीजन इट इज नॉन जस्टिसिएबल. कौन डिसाइड करेगा, यही तो पूछ के कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ने इसको नॉन जस्टिसिएबल रखा है. Who decides the government capacity? Will it be the people? Will it be the court or the government itself? Since this kind of question will come, that is why the Constituent Assembly said that it is better to keep this as non-justiciable, as we have seen in the Irish Constitution. But can the same logic be applied to fundamental rights? आपको जेल में बंद कर दिया बेमतलब का, आपको बॉन्डेड लेबर बना दिया. ओके, सो एंड यू नो द गवर्नमेंट इज सेइंग अभी हमारी कैपेसिटी नहीं है आपको छुड़ाने की. आर कैपेसिटी इज नॉट देयर टू फ्री यू फ्रॉम बॉन्डेड स्लेवरी. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ लॉजिक डज नॉट वर्क. दैट इज वाई द राइट्स बीइंग एब्रोगेटेड, द राइट्स बीइंग वायलेटेड, दे नीड इमीडिएट रिड्रेसल. आपको इमीडिएटली जो है उसको रिड्रेस करना है. दैट इज वाई द फंडामेंटल राइट्स, they have been made justiciable. You can directly approach the court. And the DPSP, this is for overtime evolution. Is it clear to everybody? Justiciable and non-justiciable. Wonderful. Important articles जो है इसको देख लीजिएगा, इसको हम लोग करेंगे बिल्कुल एक साथ. इंपॉर्टेंट अमेंडमेंट्स की अलग से क्लास होगी. अमेंडमेंट्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. बाय बिकॉज अमेंडमेंट से बहुत सारे आपके क्वेश्चन है. इन द पास्ट 11 years you can see more than 20 questions they have found their way through amendments. Okay, amendments और cases, amendment और cases जो है वो बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। ओके, एनी डाउट दैट यू गाइज हैव टिल हेयर? कोई किसी भी तरीके का डाउट है आप लोगों को, मुझे बताइए। 9, बहुत बढ़िया, ब्यूटीफुल। बिल्कुल।